Wrap-ups. Are they still a thing? Are they not? I genuinely don't know. But if you still enjoy watching monthly reading wrap-ups as much as I do, look no further. I am here to satisfy that craving today and talk about the books that I've read the past 3 months for May, June, and July. Over those months, I ended up reading 12 books. I have talked about a lot of them in some reading vlogs that I've done, but I still think it's fun to kind of just recap all of them together, go in depth, telling you what I thought, what I rated them, all the fun things. So I'm ready to talk about these books. Let's get right into it. So the first book that I read in May was a reread, one that I've read many, many times, but it had been a decade since I'd last read it. I read The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. This book will never cease to amaze me. Every time I read it, it is better than the last. Every time I read it, it makes me feel all the feels. I cry every time. I just think this book is a masterpiece. Like, I think of it as a modern classic. Whatever John Green put in here, like, he accomplished something really great. Anybody of any age could read this and genuinely, truly enjoy it. And I think that's what makes it so special. It's just such a fantastic book, and that's why it is a 5-star read for me forever. It will never change. And my reread was nothing short of amazing. The next book I read was one that I've raved about a couple times now. I read Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. Now, if you know anything about me, you would know Emily Henry is kind of a hit or miss author for me. I've really enjoyed some of her books and really have felt let down by some of them. I've always loved Beach Read. When I watch you sleep, I feel overwhelmed that you exist is something I quote often. Sometimes her books just don't do it for me, but I've been hearing really mixed reviews about this one. People were saying that it was kind of a mix of that Emily Henry romance with The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is one of my favorite books to literally ever exist. So I went into it with high hopes, and I was not let down. I instantly fell in love with this book. I couldn't put it down when I was reading it. It was just something that really got to me. There was this mystery aspect in it. The story, aside from the romance, was so good as you followed these two writers interviewing this woman, telling her life story. The romance was so good. It was slightly insta-love, but it was something that I was okay with because everything else was so perfect. I loved our main characters, Alice and Hayden. This book was so awesome to me. I gave it 5 stars, which was really exciting, especially because like a new read that was 5 stars hadn't happened for me in quite some time. So genuinely loved this one, and it kind of restored my faith in Emily Henry. Another book I read in May was Recursion by Blake Crouch. This was my second Blake Crouch book. I have also read Dark Matter by him. A lot of people have probably read that by this point. It kind of blew up last year and it became a TV show on Apple TV. But this one I bought a couple of years ago, back when I started working at Barnes & Noble. It was recommended to me by a coworker. I said okay, and then it just sat on my shelf for ages, which, let's be real, it's kind of a trend for me, but I decided it was time to pick this one up and give it a shot. And this is essentially about this world where reality is broken. There are all these different time loops going on because this scientist created this machine that allows you to go and change the past, and he allows this man to go and relive a part of his life, and it causes absolute chaos for the entire world, and the whole time you're just trying to hope that the world can be saved. And it was awesome. It was a little too sciencey for me to fully comprehend, but the story as a whole was just so fun, so enticing. Like, I was sucked in from the beginning and I had such a great time. This was, I think, like a 4-star read for me, maybe 4.5. I think Blake Crouch is just a really awesome writer, and he never fails to write like really fun stories. So this one was memorable for me for sure. And I think this is the last book that I read in May. I read Deep Cuts by Holly Brickley, one that was so highly anticipated for me, but honestly was just a letdown. Like, I felt sad about how little I enjoyed this book. It's about these two people who meet in, I think, the 90s, and one is a musician, one can write songs really well, and they kind of form this relationship where she writes songs for him, he performs them, and over time it kind of turns into more than a friendship, or they want it to be more than a friendship, and you're kind of just following their lives throughout a couple decades. I wanted to love it, but I didn't. There was one part in it that's about a bay window, and it tackles 9/11. It's that period of time, and I found it to be really good and really kind of heavy, but in a beautiful way. But the rest of the book just wasn't it, and I felt let down, especially because I thought it was going to be romance, and it just wasn't. 2 stars. Next up, we have a horror book, which kind of set me on a horror binge that I am in currently as we speak, but I read Ghost Camera by Darcy Coates. This was my first Darcy Coates book. I picked it up because I've heard she's a great horror author. What I did not know until I was in it was that it is a short story collection. I thought this was one book. It is not. It has like 10 short stories in it or something. And overall, I was really wowed by it. Most of the stories were really creepy and eerie. I wanted to read all of them in one sitting, but the last one, oh my goodness. It's about this woman and her daughter living in this house, and they find this box of videotapes and the woman watches them, and it was so freaking scary. Like, I was genuinely so scared. I felt like I was gonna get like attacked or like something was gonna happen to me for a couple weeks after reading it, and that's what I want out of a horror book. So that alone raised the bar for this one and had me just wanting more from horror. So this one was like a 4-star for me as a whole, but the last story in it, 5 stars for sure. Next, I read a new favorite. I read The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. This one, I watched the movie years back, really wanted to read the book, was begged to read the book, finally picked the book up and adored it so much. It's a story told through a series of letters from this boy Charlie, who is in his freshman year of high school, and he's just writing to somebody looking for a friend, kind of. He's very much a wallflower. He's very shy and reserved and quiet, and he has no friends going into high school, but throughout this freshman year, he gains this group of really great friends and kind of lives like a really beautiful life. But he's also working through some unrecognized trauma throughout the book, and it is just such a great story. I read it in like 2 days, couldn't put it down. Every letter had me wanting to read the next one and the next one. Like, if you haven't read this, I highly recommend it. Even if you've seen the movie, like, I think both are necessary. They go hand in hand because they have different material in them. One has something that the other doesn't, and it's so necessary to see both or read both or experience both. So definitely go do that. But this is a new forever favorite for me. 5 stars, hands down. So great. Another book I read was a YA book. I read You'd Be Home Now by Kathleen Glasgow. This was my first book by just Kathleen Glasgow. I've read the Agathas, but that was with another author. This one is definitely your hitting hard and heavy, sad YA book, which is something that I used to be really into. Like, that's kind of all I used to read at a certain point in my life. So I had high hopes going into it. It's basically about this brother and sister. The brother just went to rehab for an opioid addiction. The sister is just trying to experience high school and be a teenager, but she feels like she has to be her brother's keeper and kind of take care of him and watch out for him. And you kind of experience their sibling relationship, which I found to be really beautiful. You experience her struggling to learn how to be a teenager and just kind of let things go. And you also experience her brother trying to get better and trying to overcome his drug addiction. And I found it to be a really beautiful story. At first, I was kind of concerned that it was like too little, like too young YA for me, and I wasn't gonna really get the most out of it, but it ended up being a great read. And I gave it like 3.75 stars, I think. So pretty good. Next up, I read Our Infinite Fates by Laura Steven. This is a YA fantasy book that has been compared to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, one of my all-time favorite books. So I was excited, as you can imagine. It's essentially these two people who live infinite lives, but they can never live to be 18. Every time one of them has to kill the other. And you kind of spend the whole book being like, why? Why can you not live to be 18? Why do you have to kill each other? Why are you constantly on the run? And there's also romance in it, which I did enjoy. I did appreciate the romance, but I feel that there were just so many things in here that I was questioning the whole time. So many things that I was like, this is a plot hole. This doesn't make sense. I'm left wondering. I'm left questioning, and I'm not getting the answers that I want to keep me drawn in the whole time. I think if some of the questions that I had been answered earlier on, I would have been less frustrated, but the longer the book went on and the more questions I had, the more kind of irritated I felt by it, because I was like, literally, what the heck is going on? Why do I not know anything? But I did enjoy reading about some of the lives that they lived, because you kind of went through time, going to different countries and different decades and centuries and seeing their different lives, and it was really entertaining in that way. I just wish that questions had been answered sooner, and I also didn't like the plot twist at the end. So I have really mixed feelings about this book, if you can't tell. And I don't even know what I would rate it. I think I rated it in the video that I talked about it in, but like now looking at it, I don't know. But like, I'm glad I read it nonetheless. It was just not what I wanted, I think. But anyway. The next book I read was one that I have been waiting to start for years. It's part of a series. I read The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. As we know, Jennifer Lynn Barnes keeps cranking out books for the Inheritance Games, but this is one of her lesser known series, definitely still known, but lesser known. It is a teenage criminal minds, essentially. These teenagers are all brought in by the FBI. They are trained to be FBI agents because they all have these special talents. They're called the Naturals. They're able to do things that adults couldn't do without years and years and years of studying, or even maybe couldn't do ever. So you follow them, these teenagers, they're very fun. They're a very eclectic group. There's romance in it, which I wasn't wowed by because it's a love triangle, just like the Inheritance games, and I wish that it was something other than a love triangle, because it just feels repetitive to me. Albeit this did come out before the Inheritance games, so I guess the Inheritance games feels repetitive, but then the Inheritance games kind of feels like The Summer I Turned Pretty, because that is two brothers and a girl, just like The Summer I Turned Pretty. Maybe I'm just not a huge love triangle girl as I think about it. I think we just discovered something about me together. That was interesting, wasn't it? Anyway, this was fun. I really enjoyed it. I feel like I need to pick up the rest of the series. I read this essentially in one day, and if I don't pick up the rest of the series now, I don't know if I ever will, especially as a Criminal Minds lover and a true crime lover. I had a lot of fun. I feel like it was fairly predictable, but it was enjoyable. For a YA book, it was enjoyable. 4 stars. I'm gonna stop there. Next, I read a book by a local author who came into my Barnes & Noble to do a book signing, and I kind of talked to her a bit, bought her book. She is seriously the sweetest ever. I read Where the Darkness Lies by Cheyenne Malia. This is kind of a dark romance. It's not super dark. She said it was kind of like a gateway to dark romance, but it's kind of a stalker romance. It's professor and student, but reverse. The woman is the professor, which is completely out of my comfort zone. This is not something I would ever read, but I wanted to because I love reading like a local author's book, especially when I've like gotten to meet them, and I did enjoy it. I feel like this was refreshing for me because I don't often, again, read things like this. It was maybe not my favorite just because I don't think this kind of romance is my thing, but if you're somebody who likes a dark romance or any of the things that I previously mentioned, you'd probably like it. I seriously think it was just like a preference for me that I like my cutesy, lighthearted romances and not so much this kind of thing. And she is seriously the sweetest ever. So I'm glad I read it. I had a good time. And that's that. Next up, we have another reread. This apparently was my time of rereads because I never do that, but it was time for me to give Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow another read. It's been too long. I got the audiobook. Funny little side note story. I had this ad for Audible and it was like, get 3 months for $1. And I was like, sure, I can listen to Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow because I've never listened to the audiobook. So I do it. I get the Audible. I get Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and as I did it, I was like, the cover looks so strange. Like, why is it a different cover for the audiobook? And then I start listening. Yeah, I got the Spanish audiobook. Yeah. Oops. So immediately, luckily, Amazon has a good return policy, and I returned the audiobook, got the regular one, and then proceeded to listen to it and just choose pain and heartbreak, because that's apparently what I wanted to do to myself, but I had the most lovely time. As you may know if you've seen any of my videos, this is my favorite book of all time, and that hasn't changed. I just love this book so much. I love Sam, I love Sadie, I love Marks, I love the whole world that is created in here. I love that it's about more than just video games, and it's not a love story, it's a friendship story, and it is just the most beautiful, well-written, amazing thing ever, and I could talk about it for literally forever, for the rest of my life. So 5 out of 5. Had the best time ever. And finally, I could technically include this one in my next month's wrap up for August because I did finish it on the first day of August, but it was only like 20 pages that I read that day, so I'm gonna include it here. I read The Troop by Nick Cutter. This is your most grotesque, most disgusting horror book you have ever heard of. It is something that I've strayed away from for years because I've heard people say it is absolutely vile, and they were not wrong. They were not wrong. This book was disgusting. I would recommend never eating if you're gonna read it. Never eat when you're about to read it or in the middle of reading it or after you read it. Just don't. I don't want to get into details about it, but essentially it's like your modern Lord of the Flies. It was not scary, but it was disgusting. And that's all I want to say because I have a video coming up soon and I go in depth on what I thought, so I don't want to tell you too much now, but it was a wild ride. That's all I will say. Okay, so those were all the books that I read for May, June, and July, and I'm excited. I feel like I never read that much anymore, so like 12 books in 3 months is good for me. Like, that's 4 books a month, guys. That's like basically a book a week, so not to toot my own horn, but I think she's back in her reading game. Obviously, still not reading like I used to when I was reading 100 to 200 books a year, but it's something, and I'm really excited about it, and I'm having fun, which is the most important thing, and I feel like I'm reading mostly really good quality books, which is awesome, and I'm having fun making the videos for them, etc. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. If you've read any really good books recently, please let me know. I'm always on the lookout for new, perfect, amazing reads. If you want to be friends, all my socials are linked down below. I love connecting with everyone in this community and making videos and talking to you guys and all of the fun things. Anyway, I will see you guys next time. Thank you again for watching. And that's it. Bye.